Welcome everybody to episode number 7, and this is the video where we'll talk about what I think is the most powerful tool that LaTeX offers, or Overleaf specifically, the use of references and how quickly this can be executed. So we'll take a look at two things. The first one is of course the source code, because here we can see, well, a lot of code that we use for a citation. So we'll quickly discuss that. And next up, we have the bibliography and how we, of course, insert that in our document. So let's start off with what we see here in the source code. This is not something we write ourselves. This is something we can get from, for example, Google Scholar. This is the way that BibTeX is inserted in your document in a dedicated file, which ends with the extension .bib. So the first ingredient that we see here is that this is an article with the tag University 2020 Groningen. And this is the tag that we use to insert this article into our document. Now here we have a title specified with the authors, the journal, the volume, the number, the pages and the year. But this is all specified from within Google Scholar, for example, where we retrieved this BibTeX code. So let me now first show you how to get this tag into your document. So we'll go to chapter equations. And let's head there in the document as well. And here we can see that we have an equation. And this equation comes from a reference. So I did not make it up myself. We'll now act like it comes from price, policies, and theory. So if we have read this article and would like to get a citation from it, we click these annotation marks. And then we get how we can cite it. So we click on BibTeX, which opens up a new file. And we copy what's written here. And we copy this to our references.bib file, and we can add it in. And as you see, it's very similar. So now the tag is Hawkins, 1954 price. If we go back to equations, we can then enter it here. So we can simply type Haw and we can get our suggestion. Now there are two different ways to do this. The first one is cite and then our tag, and the second one is cite P. And again, we can write Hawkins inside these brackets. Now, let's compile the document and you can see what the difference is. So, as you can see, if we do not write a P and we simply use cite, with that command, we get the name Hawkins with only the year between brackets. And then it reads as if it is a sentence. So, Hawkins show, okay, of course, something to take into account. If you have a plural form, so Hawkins would have cooperated on this paper with someone else, you want to make sure that you write it correctly, but now we should add the S. Alright, so Hawkins shows how the break-even price can be calculated. And in this case, it is a sentence that is a standalone sentence. And we get this statement and we say it's originated from Hawkins in 1954. So if it's at the end of the sentence, you want to write cite P. And it's my personal preference to end the sentence with a space, then enter cite P with your reference, and then, end with a period. So now that we have added this citation Hawkins here in the document, we can also find it back in our references chapter. Since it was added, automatically it will also be added to our references. And even though we added it twice in our source code, it will only show up once in the references. But I think it's good to point out that if you add more source code here, it will not automatically put this in our references. And to show that, I added some random source code for different articles. But since we do not use them in our document, we don't have to worry about whether those will be inserted in our references. So only the ones used in your document will be the ones presented in your references.bib. Now, something that we skipped on in the beginning of the video, but that's relevant to talk about, is that the references is added into our document after the body of the text. So it's page 9 of 9. And after that, we start with the references, which is not numbered. So that's a personal preference from me, and I added this. So what do we use? We use 4 lines for it. We say renew command bib name is references. So I want to call this chapter references. That's what I can edit, and that's what I can change here. Then we use a big skip to make some clearance, and we start with the bibliography. Now we use a new page and a bibliography style, APA-like, and since it is not a chapter, by default it would be added simply after future work, so we do not want to have that. Then the page style is references, which can be found back in the paper.st file. Let's see, references, and we say we only have the information in this document is confidential, and we do not have a line like this saying the page is the page of the number of pages, but you could change that if you would like. And then going back to the main, we have our fourth line, the bibliography, where we say this bibliography that we use in the document is references.bib. Again, referring, of course, to this file. All right, to close off, last tip: get used to using Google Scholar and finding any article that you'd like. After you've read it, you can use the Google Scholar option with cite. You could also click here, export citation to BibTeX, but then you'll download a file which you have to open, which could cause errors, as you see here. So I suggest to you get back to Google Scholar, find it there, click the annotation, click BibTeX, and here you can copy paste your source code. Then the last thing I would like to point out, you might run into errors regarding your references. Simply read them and go to tag.stack exchange again, as I suggested earlier. But one of the most common problems that surfaces is that these commas, which indicate a new line, so after volume 18 you want to have a comma to initiate number, those should be added to each and every line except the last one, and this closing parentheses should close this one, which is also something that you could check once you run into problems with your citations. Alright, so that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it and it was useful. See you back in a future video, and good luck writing your reports.